In this section, we'll be setting up the base Android SDK integration with our Android Shopper test app in a step-by-step fashion. The first step is to add our Braze Android SDK repository to our settings.gradle file. As opposed to our documentation for this project as an alternative to the All Projects block, we're adding the Braze repository to our settings.gradle file instead of the build.gradle file due to the project structure. However, depending on your project structure, you should add the Braze repository to the All Projects block in the build.gradle file as specified by our documentation. So here we can go down to the Gradle scripts section, open up the settings.gradle file, which I'm already in, and we can go ahead and add this line of code. We can then click on Sync Now to sync this. The next step is to add the Braze dependency into the app-level Gradle files dependencies. So here we can go to the build.gradle file for the module, open this up, and add this Braze dependency. We can then click on Sync Now again. Next, we'll need to create a Braze.xml file to add the next few lines of code. In order to do this, go to your res values folder, right-click or control-click, go to New, Values Resource File. For the file name, you'll call this Braze.xml, keep everything else the same, and click OK. Now, within the Resources section of that file, we'll need to add these two lines of code here. These two lines of code let you specify your app identifier, or your app ID, as well as your custom SDK endpoint. We can get both of these from the Braze dashboard, which we'll do now. Next, we'll need to add a couple permissions to our AndroidManifest.xml file. Within the Manifest folder under App, open the AndroidManifest.xml file. You can add these two lines of code in before the application tags. Next, we'll need to register the Braze Activity Lifecycle Callback listener. In order to do this, we'll go to our main activity class and find the onCreate method here. We can then add this line of code right under the super.onCreate method here. You'll notice that it highlights in red. This can be resolved by just importing the class. We'll also want to add this line of code here in step 6, BrazeLogger.setLogLevel Log.VERBOSE, which enables verbose logs, which can be very helpful for debugging purposes. We can add this right under the line of code that we just added. You'll notice again that it highlights in red, and we can import this class as well. Next, you'll need to add this line of code here, final context activity context equals getActivity, to your HomeFragment class. So we can go to the HomeFragment, and before the onCreate view method, we can go ahead and add this line of code. This line of code that we just added will be needed when you implement standard and custom attributes as well as custom events further down the road. And finally, we can go ahead and click this hammer icon up at the top to build the project. Once the build has finished, we can then click on this play button up at the top to run the app. If you haven't already set up an emulated device up here, you will need to do this before you can run the app. You can follow the steps on the Android Studio UI to set up this device if you haven't already. Then you can click on Run App, and if you're seeing logs down here, that means that the Android SDK integration is operating as it should. You can now search for a device ID by typing in command+F and searching device ID, copying this value here and going to user search, pasting in that device ID, and you should see sessions being logged here. In my case, my user ID has already been set for this particular device, but you'll see that I last used a session a few seconds ago, which is when we started this app. And that completes the base Android SDK integration for Shopper.
As a homework assignment, steps 11 and 12 will be left to you.
This involves setting methods for setting user IDs, as well as setting standard and custom attributes and logging custom events. You can follow the instructions here or follow the link in the comments to our documentation to implement these methods. Good luck.